Hello guys, welcome to the next video on Node.js tutorial for beginners. And in this video, I'm going to show you how we can use file system module in Node.js, which is a built-in module. Now, Node implements file IO using simple wrapper around the standard POSIX functions. And this is done using Node file system module or simply FS module in Node.js. Now let's see first of all how we can add fs module. So just write var fs is equal to require, and then you just add fs. Okay, and this is how you can add fs module. Now this fs module you can use for various input output functions related to file system. In this video particularly, we are going to see how we can use this fs module to read and write to a file synchronously and asynchronously, right? So first of all, we will use this file to read from a file synchronously, but for that we need a text file which we can read. So I'm going to create a text file. For example, I will name it as test.txt, and in this text file I'm going to write some things, and let's copy and paste this line. Okay, so this is what we want to read from our file system object which we have created using this file system module. So for reading this file synchronously, what we can do is we can just use file, and first of all we need to assign this output which we read. So we can just write var, and then we can just say read string is equal to fs dot read file sync. Okay, so just write read file sync, and this method will allow us to read our file synchronously. Okay, and then give the name of your file, and because this file is in the same folder, you just need to give the name of the file, not the path, because it's in the same folder. So just write test.txt, and the second argument which we want to pass here will be the encoding type. So just write for example UTF-8, and now let's try to print whatever we have read from the file to the console. So just write console.log, and we will just print this string here, whatever we have read. So it should be read string, and then we are going to run it. So open your terminal and just run it using node app.js, and you can see our file is read. So our file content, let's see what was the file content and what the terminal is showing, right? So same content as the file. So this file system module enables us to read the file synchronously, and if you want to write this file to another file, or write the content of the file which you have read to another file, new file for example, what we can do, so we can just write fs.writefile sync. So just write write file sync, and then just pass this result to the argument. Okay, so write file sync can be used to write to the file synchronously, right? And this write file method takes two arguments. The first will be the name of your file. So let's create the name, for example test2.txt. okay, and the second argument is the content itself, right? And let's run our code and let's see what happens this time. So just see here what happens here whenever we will run this code, and you can see the text2 is created when we run the code, and the content of text2 is same as test1.txt or test.txt, right? So in this way you can use this to read and write to the file synchronously. Now fs module also have the async method, and this will allow us to read or write to a file asynchronously, right? So this, for this we just need to use the method called file name without sync. So by default, if you know about Node.js is a asynchronous program. So whenever you write the program, it runs asynchronously. And what I mean by asynchronous is I'm going to show you in just a second. So just write this. Once again, we want to read the content of test.txt file, and just call a method read file, and the first argument will be the same, and the second argument we want to pass here is the callback method, or let's say we can do it in the last argument also, right? So just write function and then just say error as a first argument and the data as the second argument, okay? And then give a curly bracket here and press enter. And in here, for example, if there is some problem in reading, we want to return error, so just call this argument, first argument, which we have passed in the callback function, which is this one, and then we can console error, right? So just write return console dot error and then pass this error here as an argument, okay? Otherwise, if there is no error in reading, we can just console log the content. So instead of console log outside the read file method, we can just call it inside our callback, okay? Something like this. And the argument which it takes now is data, because data will contain your content of your file which you have read, okay? For now, let's remove this line of code, and in here we will just call console log, and let's say we just want to print the file is read, for example, okay? And let's run the code once again and let's see what happens. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the program once again, or code once again, and you can see the output here. It's a little bit different from earlier. That first of all, the terminal prints, or this program prints the file is read, which is this line, and then it prints all the content of the file which was there inside the file. So this is done in asynchronous manner, right? So what's happening here is Node.js starts the server, for example, and this method is reading the file if the file is, for example, very big. So what happens then? So you want to in a real life situation, when you are dealing with real data, you need to do your stuff asynchronously, right? Because otherwise your code will block this running of your server, and other things cannot happen if one process or one file reading is taking very long time. But this way of executing your code asynchronously will help you to run your code in a very good manner, because your code is not waiting for the reading of your file, but it's executing the next step and the next step once again. If there will be some more useful code below this also, then it's going to execute it, and once the file is read, it's going to print the content of the file using this console log. So the callback function, this function is called callback function, and it is triggered whenever the file is read completely, right? So this is how asynchronous way of reading file works. Okay, in the same way you can write to the file asynchronously also, and you just need to call fs.writefile, and then the name of the file in which you want to write to. So let's do that and let's see what happens. So fs.writefile, and the first argument will be this argument. The second argument would be the content which we want to write. For example, we want to write this data which we are reading from the first file, for example. And the third argument will be the same as we have done here, the callback, right? So you can just copy this much amount of code before the bracket and then pass it here, and we can just add a semicolon here. Okay, and this is just checking whether your file is written, and if it's not written, it's going to console log the error, and if it's written, then we can say success. For example, we can just print success, right? Something like this. And when you run your code once again, it's going to write it. So let's run it, and program is done, and at last it prints success, and you can see the file is also created, text.txt, right? So in this way you can use fs module in Node.js. There is more functionality in this fs module which you can find on the Node.js site. So go to nodejs.org/API/fs.html, and in here you can go here, file system, or you will be able to find more method related to this fs module here, and there are so many methods which you can use. So just go through this documentation, and then you will be good to go. So I hope you have enjoyed this video. Please rate, comment, subscribe, and bye for now.